The flashbang is a core part of Counter-Strike, from the memes to some truly incredible plays.
Oh my god.
Flashbang.
Dead.
But Counter-Strike 2 changed a lot of things. HEs are better than ever, but flashbangs could be having a sort of identity crisis. Fewer flashbangs are being thrown than just a couple of months ago, and we found a guy with the numbers to prove it. So why are pros using flashbangs less? And what does it spell for the future of this iconic nade?
I think there's a lot of feeling being done with CS2 right now, because a lot of the analysis hasn't really been done yet. You know, we've had 10 years of people doing like deep analysis of like obscure stuff, running test workshop maps, and for a long time we haven't had those kind of tools to test the same kind of functionality.
Okay folks, so before we get into it, I just want to remind you all to please sub to the channel if you haven't already, and to head over to shop.thescore.com to check out our new merch drop. Okay, so the flashbang is a venerable pillar of Counter-Strike. Flashes have been in CS since literally the beginning, appearing in some maps in 1.0. And even in the good old days of 1.6, players were finding ways to use and abuse their power to blind enemies. As the years went on though, flashes became more and more coordinated, with people engineering new obscure angles to catch their opponents unawares.
I mean, that's gonna be a red flag. They should know he's back here, but he's, oh my god, face to face with Amanek.
Now, flashes offer some very important utility for a number of reasons. One, they're quick. Properly timed flashes can catch an enemy off guard and buy you an important split-second advantage in a gunfight. They're particularly important for and against oppers. And two, because you can carry multiple flashes, they have a little more flexibility than a smoke. One team of kitted out players can execute some crazy stuff when they dump utility onto a site.
This could be the ticket for Astralis. These grenades could do all of the work for them. 3 of them going over the wall, 1 on Exist, 1 on Crims. Everybody's catching fire. Twist goes down, and there it is. They close it right out. 2 on 4.
In CSGO, utility usage evolved over time, driven by back and forth innovations. And one of the foremost observers of that phenomenon is Counter-Strike analyst Mahone.
Yeah, so I'm Mahone. You may also know me by my YouTube channel, Mahone TV. You may have also seen me on Blast when I did the Mahone Zone. And even before that, I was an analyst for NIP.
Mahone recently released a great video about the evolution of utility usage in Inferno's Banana. And yeah, it included some flashes. But we wanted to ask him about how flashbang usage developed over the course of CSGO, because at the beginning, they were pretty simple.
By the end of it, I think players and teams kind of understood that to use flashes effectively, you kind of have to be more precise about them. You kind of have to keep in mind all the cues, like whether the flash bounces, whether the flash can be heard, like when the player throws it. All these little other things were not really considered back then, but they're much more considered now.
But new lineups with flashes got deep, to the point where dodging one by the end could be a harrowing experience.
I think the interesting part about what CSGO has done with the flashbang is just kind of introduce these sound mechanics, especially when you're on a top team and you're playing against a team and you're prepping against them. Sometimes it's valuable to know whether you can hear the flash or not, like whether you hear it bounce off something, so that, you know, when you're playing upper on nuke, when people are throwing the flashes through the roof, you're gonna look out for whether or not you can actually hear the flash.
But if you haven't noticed, those strengths aren't exactly helping flashes remain relevant in these early days of CS2. Data compiled by Backpack Brain suggests that players are throwing fewer flashes than ever before. So we asked him about it.
Yeah, so I'm Backpack Brain. I describe myself as a, well, first and foremost, content creator, writer, and currently with a focus on CS2, the pro scene, especially with my writing. As for outside of that, you know, I'm studying, and that gives me enough spare time to focus on that kind of passion project.
All of this started when Backpack Brain noticed something really weird about Team Vitality. You may recall that Vitality recently changed their lineup with the departure of Magisk and addition of Massey. When asked about replacing him by Play.gg, Apex was clear that some players are just so unique that directly replacing them is impossible.
No one would replace Magisk nowadays. He's one of the
if not the best anchor in the world, he has like a really special role on T side.
So who on Vitality was filling the space left by Magisk? Well, that's what our boy Backpack Brain wanted to figure out.
I looked at the aggression statistics. I said, okay, let's put this data in a graph. And I noticed the flashbang usage, it really differed from game to game, where the Blast tournaments, 2 of them, they had kind of similar numbers between them, but the CSGO tournament was significantly different. And that kind of got me thinking that's a much more interesting topic. And really, there's a lot more numbers to be looked at across all other teams, across the entirety of both games of this year. And that's what kind of spurred this idea on.
So refocusing his article and taking stats from HLTV, Backpack Brain compared Flashbang stats using top 20 LAN results from both CS2 and the end of CSGO. And he found that, yeah, on average, fewer flashbangs were being thrown by both T and CT, with a slightly larger drop on the T side. That was still true if you looked at all events and not just LAN. Now, you might be thinking, wait a second, the flashbang itself didn't change in CS2, right? It still costs $200, it still blinds you for nearly 2 seconds if you're looking right at it, or barely at all if you're looking away, and they can still do this.
I'm gonna spielen, wenn du bist. I'm dead soon. What the f?
So maybe the problem isn't the flashbang itself, but its place in this new game. Counter-Strike at the pro level can be like this intricate puzzle, but plenty of things have been trying to flip the script lately. We've got the introduction of MR12 and all of the corresponding economic consequences of that, which are not necessarily set in stone, but are definitely still being digested even in 2024. So there's already maybe one reason, right? Players are so strapped for cash that they're thinking, flashbangs in this economy? But it's not too hard to think of a lot more. The pro scene itself is undergoing a period of instability as rosters settle and competition resumes. And as Backpack Brain also pointed out, isn't it reasonable to think that newly assembled teams outside their comfort zones may rely less on flashbang heavy executes while they get things figured out? Then there's the op itself, which, as we recently discussed, has fallen out of favor a bit.
Oh my god, op is not good.
Remember, flashes are a must against oppers, and if the op itself isn't a must, then flashes aren't either. There's also the new dynamic smoke and the impact of the HE grenade. Since the HE can now clear smoke grenades, it received added functionality that competes with flashbangs for your limited dollars. In theory, it's possible that the HE grenade's added functionality means that it's more attractive than before, something that was pointed out by CS caster T-Time in response to the article. With all of these potential options, it's sort of hard to know where to start. So let's throw things over to Colten and hopefully get a little more concrete.
And now, the guy who actually knows what he's talking about.
You're really gonna lie to these good people with that transition when you know I'm about to talk about Counter-Strike? I mean, who knows? At some point, maybe we'll have done enough CS-themed episodes of Cracked that it might be true, but I don't even know who I'm talking to. I'm the one editing this video. One of the things that makes Counter-Strike so unique is its economy. In any given round, your team has a decision to make about how to spend the resources that you have. And those decisions can mean massive swings in the game. And sure, a flashbang is only $200, and that didn't change with CS2, but plenty of other stuff did. In CS2, there are now only 12 rounds per half, a fact that has made players again reevaluate the role of the op. It means that each half is 20% shorter than before, so you have less time to earn and buy guns. With fewer gun rounds, losing guns to the other team is even more significant.
Really, that is an actual balance change. That's changed how the economy works. That's changed how you'd want to purchase an AWP. You don't want to save it as much, maybe. You would rather buy more rifles for more buy rounds.
But hold on a second, why are we talking about the op? Well, in Counter-Strike, the opper has also traditionally thrown a lot of flashbangs.
If it backfires and you can't get it up and running, it's so hard. That's a flashbang. They line up the fuck, and he'll take them both down.
Flash. Boom.
3-4 round.
Go the flash, Dory. Flash. One balcony or flash.
When I think about that, I think of more flashes from teams rather than players. A lot of the time it's just oppers that throw flashes, at least in the more recent CSGO meta because they're always in the back and it's hard to entry and stuff like that.
They are typically in a good position to do so, especially since they can flash others out of an angle that they then hold themselves. As Backpack Brain's analysis showed us, the reduction in CS2 flashbang usage was noticeably less dramatic for oppers. And while it's hard to know exactly why, it's clear that they remain one of the primary sources of flashbangs tossed for most teams.
And so part of what I suspect is going on with this change, and I don't have a 100% guarantee on this, but it seems to check out, is that while generally flashbang usage has gone down, the flashbangs that are used are going to be more frequently used by the AWPer.
Recall also that the September 2021 update for CSGO allowed players to drop grenades. So, oppers may throw flashbangs purchased and dropped by others, and could in a given round throw more than the 2 flashbangs you're normally allowed to carry. Also, it means you can try to do this.
Oh, there was. I don't think he turned.
He turned!
Now, generally speaking, counter-terrorists have been struggling more with the economic impact of MR12. When you look at the team breakdown, both are throwing fewer flashes, but usage actually drops off even more for the terrorist team. Despite that, terrorists aren't faring much worse in opening duels. Actually, in this dataset, they're doing slightly better, and kills per round is holding steady. Backpack Brain's conclusion, at least part of this phenomenon, is terrorists choosing to take more peeks without flashes. So that's everything you need to know about these graphs. Again, big props to Backpack Brain for bringing this to the fore and for speaking with us. On an unrelated note, that studio is looking pretty slick. You think maybe sometime I could come in and record? Hey, wait, don't trip.
And that was the guy who actually knows what he's talking about.
So that's the hard data. But what does all this mean for the future of the Flashbang and for your matches in particular? Well, in terms of pro play, with rosters breaking up and reforming towards CS2's release, including plenty of IGLs on the move, there's going to be less overall organization. Could that also mean fewer flashes? Speaking of coordination, we've also recently seen an increase in international lineups. Liquid added Cadian as their opping IGL and brought back Twists. We've got Glaive in charge of a Polish ENS, and Snappy will be in charge of the new Falcons roster. Could these changes in language mean a longer time to adapt?
I think that's going to also hinder, I don't think it's going to prevent it, but I think it's going to make it take a lot longer than if you had like every roster speaking their native language. Then you'd be able to get up to speed on the small stuff like team synergy much quicker, and then you'd already be able to talk about utility and improving the overall level of the game. So that's one aspect which I didn't talk about because you can't analyze that, but I think it's important to discuss it.
And while the Flash itself didn't receive any direct changes, 2 other nades did, the HE and the Smoke. Now, smoke clouds can be popped from distance, offering players a shining opportunity to peek and kill. But honestly, it's sort of difficult to gauge. Clearing smokes with HE grenades just isn't that common right now in pro play, but it is something that we could see more of as things are figured out and rosters become more cohesive.
I have. Do you want to get close?
Yeah, nade.
Maybe.
Robin, can you flash me? Oh, meta gaming!
If I were to speculate a little bit, I feel that in the future, HE grenades are going to be used more for anti-stratting. Like, let's just say you know that a team always throws this particular smoke. Beforehand, you're going to say, you know what, we're going to make sure to always have a nade so that we blow open that smoke and take advantage of it. It really depends on what the other team does. I feel like that's where it should be heading, because I think over time, or rather right now, it feels kind of like if you're just going to buy an HE just to wait for that particular opportunity to come up, it may not come up.
As for you at home, this doesn't mean that you should suddenly stop buying flashes when your team needs them. Learn your lineups, seriously. But it does mean that you should be considering the impact of buying a flash over a more versatile tool, especially in the face of weaker opping. That said, part of Backpack Brain's data suggests that uncoordinated rosters do get a little bit less value out of a flashbang. And let's be honest, your face-it pugs, probably not that coordinated. So if you're stuck choosing, maybe just buy a smoke instead. After all, in pro play, the lower levels of flashes and ops could make the game a little scrappier and more about gunplay, which could bring these 2 vastly different levels of play a teeny tiny bit closer to each other. And hey, if the economy stays this rough for CTs for the foreseeable future, it's possible we could see pro T-side flashbang usage rebound, but not the CT side, or not as much.
I think it's going to be near the end of this year, maybe the second major, you start to see the statistics kind of level out compared to what they used to be. And then coming 2025, you're going to really see the renaissance of utility innovation. I think this year we're just going to build the teams and we're going to get CS2 like figured out.
So are flashes suddenly on the way out? Well, no, obviously not. But for the foreseeable future, we could see them become a little less overly relied on than before. And hey, flashes could return to dominance one day. But until then, we'll always have the memories.
Flashbang. What was that? Good impression?
Of who?
Of the CS guy. We used to say that shit.
What's CS guy?
You know, the thing in the game where they're like, the bomb has—
Oh, like the character? Flashbang. Flashing out. Flashing out. I really hope we caught that on the mic.